Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well out there today. So today's lesson is not going to be a lick lesson, it's going to be an introduction to how to find chord tones, and maybe you're starting to get into some jazz guitar. Where is the first place to start? And I'm going to show you that in this lesson here. So if you do like what I do, before I get going with the lesson, please think about subscribing to my channel by hitting the subscribe button below. It does really help me out. Also, give the thumbs up and a like, and write a comment if you have any questions or queries. Please feel free to ask me whatever you like, and I will answer them. So I'm using this lesson as a real basic guide for people who maybe from a pop rock background, and they're just starting to look at how to play it over some chord changes. Where do you start? Because it's a big hole you can get yourself into, and it's a big rabbit hole, and when one door opens, another 1,000 seem to appear. So I'm going to give you a nice introduction, a nice simple introduction to help you do that, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate this over a chord progression called the 2-5-1-6. Okay, and it's a very common chord progression you find in a lot of jazz standards and yeah, stuff like that. So you're going to be seeing a lot of that if you do start to get into the jazz world. So this is a major 2-5-1 essentially, but with an added sixth chord on the end to take us back to the 2. So I'll explain what that is now. So if you don't know what the number system is, the numbers represent the chords in the key. So in this case, we're in the key of C major. So chord 1 would be C major. Chord 2 would be D minor, chord 3 E minor, 4 F major, 5 G major, chord 6 A minor, chord 7 B diminished. So the key of C has no sharps or flats, so it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B. That is the C major scale. Now we have to put the type of chord, the major and minor chord, against those letters in the scale. So in every key we have major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and diminished, okay? Now, so in this case, in the key of C, like I said, it would be C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. So those are our chords in our key. Now, the chord progression we're using is a 2-5-1, so we have to take the chords, the second chord, the 5 chord, and the 1 chord in that key. Now we can use extensions for those chords as well. So instead of a major, we can have a major 7, D minor becomes a D minor 7, E minor becomes an E minor 7, F major becomes an F major 7, G major becomes a G dominant 7th, okay guys? So that is your dominant chord. The 5 chord is always the dominant in the key. 6 chord, A minor 7, and the 7th would be B half diminished, or B minor 7 flat 5. Now we are playing a major 2-5-1 in the key of C. So the 2 chord would be this D minor 7. The 5 chord would be your G7. And your 1 chord would be your C major 7. You can use extensions on these as well if you want. So you could use D minor 9, G13, okay, and then maybe a G major 7, G major 9 or major 7. Like I said, you can use that if you just know those shapes. You can also, a popular thing to do would be on the 5 chord, the dominant chord would be to turn that into an altered chord. So you could put your sharp 5 in that, or you could put the flat 5 as well. So you could this one here, so you could turn that into an altered chord because it resolves nicely, it brings that tension back in. Okay, but for the moment, if you just know this shape even, we'll just stick to a G7. So you've got D minor 7, G7, C major 7. So what we can do, obviously we can just play over this using the C major scale because we know the key is C major, and we can just go. But again, we want to know how to play over changes, so we want to respect those changes. We want to hit the chord tones over each chord. Okay, now I did mention at the start it's a 2-5-1-6, so where does the 6 come in? Now the 6 in the key is an A minor 7, correct? But what we want to do is, because after the A minor it comes back to the D minor, what we're going to do is we're going to create and make this an A7. So we're going to create what we call a secondary dominant. We've added this dominant in. Even though it should be in the key of minor, we're going to create a dominant chord because it's got a 5-to-1 movement. So the 5 chord going back to the D minor. So effectively what I'm thinking here is this is a 5 chord leading back for that split second is to the 1 chord. Even though I know it's the 2 chord, but I'm thinking that it's a 5 to the 1 movement. You find a lot of that in jazz, and there's plenty you can play with that, but more about that in a second. So what we want to do to be able to play over it, we need to be able to find the chord tones. Now, I've got a backing track that I've used from a guy called Quist. You might know him, a YouTube player, very cool, makes great backing tracks, and it's a 2-5-1-6. So I will just unmute the track so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay, so 2, 5, 1, 6. Okay, it just loops that. So what we need to find first is our chord tones. So what are the chord tones? So this is going to be part 1 of the video, guys. I'm probably going to do about 4 or 5 parts on this topic, but you need to be able to find the chord tones to be able to play it over changes. So over the D minor, G7, C major, like I said, if I'm just thinking around this position, all of those triads are in that major scale. They're all in the same key, okay? Obviously, you can find the D minor triad, the G major triad, and the C major triad in that. Okay, it's only when we go to the A we have to alter it slightly. So, over the D minor chord, I can see my triads, my root, my D, my flat 3, my 5, my 1, my flat 3, my 5, and if you want to add in the flat 7, okay, of those as well to make, because it's the minor 7. So you really want to be able to pinpoint the chord tones over each chord. So for the D minor, because it's a minor chord, we have a 1, flat, 3, and 5. Those are the intervals that make up a minor chord, 1, flat, 3, 5. To make up a major chord, it's 1, 3, and 5. Okay, so for the minor chord, D minor, I'm finding the 1, the flat 3, the 5, okay? 1, flat 3, 5. If you don't know your flat 7 or your minor 7 arpeggios, it doesn't matter at this point. Just pick out the triad notes. This is step 1. Okay, so we've got 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5. Then we go to the G7 or G major. Okay, just think of it as a major at this point. We just want to highlight the triads. We have to be able to find the triad notes of G major. So you have 1 here. We could pick the 3 here. I'm going to go 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. So I'm seeing this as the triads, okay? But the reason being I just want to keep it to one area of the neck. Don't be all over the place. You just want to see it in an isolated position. So D minor. Sorry. Okay, G major. Then we go to C major. So I'm seeing it from this C here, my triad. 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1. So those are my triads for C. So I'm just going to hit the roots of each of just those chords for a minute, then I'll show you what to do in the A7. So we have this. If I just hit the roots, so D, G, C. Okay, and again I'll pick some different ones. So D here. Again, 2, 3, 4. So you must be able to do that. You must be able to pick out the roots. So I picked out the D from D minor, the G from G major, and the C from C major. Then you would do the same for the third. So if it's over the minor chord, it would be the flat 3. If you're over the major chord, you play the third. So for D minor, I'd play the flat 3, the third of G, and then the third of C. And you would do this until you've run out of options. So D would be the flat 3 here, third of G, third of C. And then you would do for the same for the fifths, etc. And then obviously you would try and target your 7s as well, so do all the same for the 7ths. But I just want to keep it to the triads for a minute. Then you would try and isolate that by hitting your root to, your flat 3 or your third to the root. Now that's going to give you the sound of the chord a lot more. So if I went like this over the D minor, I'm going to play the flat 3, then the root, third and root to the G, third and root for the C. So you can hear already, if I do it with a bit more bounce, okay, so I'm starting to connect them now by just doing that, okay. We get to the A7, so let's talk about that. So when you get to the A7, obviously you're not in that key of C anymore because you're playing a dominant 7th with this added third. So again, we just have to highlight it for the moment of trying to find the triads of A. So A, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. So let me just highlight all the roots, flat 3 to the roots, and I'll include that A this time. So it would be okay, so you can start to hear the chords there in the background. Now, like I said, as I know this C major chord, I can start blending in the scale with the chord tones. So let me just put on the track a minute, and then I will start to blend in the chord tones with that. So that's the start, the D, G, C, then the A7. Right, I'll come in here. So flat 3. So I'm really thinking simple. I'm connecting the chord tones that I know I want to target, okay, but with the scale that I know. So in this case, I'm just keeping it simple with the C major scale in one position. Now, when the chords aren't there as well, you should be able to hear just the chords you're playing underneath. So if I give you the chords just to outline first. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you can kind of hear already how it's just about linking up the chord tones with the scale that you know. Next lesson, I'm going to talk about some stuff, more stuff you can play over it. But if you haven't got past that point yet, this is a good place to start. Like I say, if you're just starting out and wanting to play over changes, you must be able to pick up the chord tones. Right, guys, that's enough of the part 1. I'll be with you for the second part, probably tomorrow. But yeah, have a good one. Any questions or queries you have, please let me know down below. Cheers, guys.